Today we're going to talk about a JavaScript library called Peaks.js. It's a browser-based audio waveform visualization. I'm a musician, so things like this interest me, and today we're going to make a example project and see if we can figure out how to use this thing and what all it does. Now there are many ways to make an example boilerplate project. You can use create React app or Next.js, or I actually created myself a little utility called project that does this. It basically just puts together some configuration that I like to use in little throwaway apps, and that's what we're going to do here. So let's change to Peaks, and let's I like to use tmux, so let's get that going. We're going to run the server here, npm run dev watch. Go back here. Actually, that's 5173. So let's go to localhost 5173, and the project is ready to go. So let's put that over here because that's where I like that to be. And let's take a look at the Peaks.js GitHub page, which tells us how to get this thing installed. And we're going to install Peaks.js. And the reason why I'm doing this one at a time is because Peaks.js is a little, let's just call it dated at the moment. And this other library, Conva, has moved on to newer versions. And this Peaks.js current does not like the newer versions of Canvas, so we're going to have to install an older one. So let's go to here and install Peaks.js, and then let's install Canva. And I've done this since it's 8.43 is the version before the current, so let's install that. And then let's install this waveform data. And then we should be good to go. Now my little example project uses Vite, so we should be good to go with that. Let's use this boilerplate HTML that they gave us and put that in our project JSX. So I'm just going to plop that there. Going to delete this. Open parentheses, close, and save that. Oh, but React does not like multiple parents, so let's put a fragment in here. Oops. Let's close the fragment down here. And let's see what that looks like. Oh, the sources need to be closed. So let's do that. And now we should be good to go. Okay, when it formats itself, I know that things are working properly. So now we should have a blank screen here. Let's open up our console and refresh to see what kind of errors we have. We're missing a fave icon, which is fine, and we're missing an MP3 and an OGG. Well, we're not going to do OGG. I only have a sample MP3 file. So we'll delete that, and that should get rid of that error. And so now we're just down to the missing sample MP3, which we can fix easy enough. I don't remember where I got this thing. I may have gotten it from, let's just put it right here. I did this project off camera, and I probably picked it up somewhere while I was trying to do that. Vite wants a public directory for static files that it's going to get. So let's move this to the public directory, and now we should only have the fave icon message. Okay, this promise thing I believe is a add-on that I have that's misbehaving, so we'll ignore that. And now let's see what we have. We've got some HTML with some IDs and an audio source. What's next? The next thing is it wants some CSS to give the view container, the zoom view container and the overview container a width and a height. So let's make that file. I'm going to use Sass because my boilerplate project is configured for that. So let's go ahead and save that file and open it up. But before we do, we need to install npm install. I should probably already have this installed, but I don't. I'll update my project later to fix this so that I don't have to do it in the future. And now we can npm run dev watch again, and we can go back to the editor and we can plop this in. I probably could have clicked the little copy button over there, but whatever. But we're not going to use IDs. We're going to use classes. And we're going to change these IDs to classes, class names, because this is React. Actually, we're going to do this one too. So there we go. So now we can have multiple of these on the screen if we choose. But now we need to import our Sass. So let's do project SCSS. And let's save that. Do we have any problems? Just our fave icon still. Okay. What's next? Next, we need to initialize the Peaks runtime. So we're not going to use a script tag because we're using Vite, and we're able to do module imports. So let's grab this, and let's put that at the top of the page, and let's save that. And then we're going to want some options, and we're going to want to initialize the Peaks runtime. So this is a React project, so we're going to want to do that in a use effect. So let's import use effect from React. It read my mind. Use effect. Let's paste this junk in there. Oops, I think I went too far. Let's close this off. Let's put an empty dependency array for now. Good. Let's save that. So now we have some options, and we are initializing Peaks, but it's not happy about something. Options is not defined. Really? Did you mean option? Options are right there. Oh. Let's put this in there. Now that's better. Peaks is defined but never used. That is true. First of all, let's fix this up here. So we're not going to use document get element by ID because we removed the IDs. We're going to use references. So let's pull in use ref, and let's put in some references. Ref. So let's go down here, and we're going to zoom view container. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. That looks good. Okay. So now we're going to change this to use the zoom view container ref. And we're going to do the same here. Overview container ref, and then one more here. Audio reference. And then we just need to put our references down here. So we're going to say ref equals the zoom view container, and this one is going to be actually like that. this is going to be the overview container. And then this is going to be the audio. Like so. Okay. So let's see how our project's looking. We've got some we've got some UI here. That's good. And no errors, but we have no way to actually play this song yet. And we have some sort of error. Oh yeah, Peaks is defined but never used. So let's go ahead. What we want to do is use some state. So let's do a use state. And let's create some state to hold the Peaks instance. So we'll come down here and we'll do Peaks instance and set Peaks instance. That looks good. So 22. Set Peaks instance to Peaks. That's good. So now we have a handle to the Peaks instance when it gets initialized. But we have no buttons. So let's create some buttons. Div. We'll just go without that for now. We need some buttons. Button. On click. We don't want a zoom. We want on click to equal on play. That looks good. And we probably want a pause. Pause. Okay, and then we'll close that div. And we'll call this class name equals controls. Controls. Because these buttons are going to be like one on top of each other or something. We're going to need a little bit of CSS to fix that. But before we do that, we have some errors in our browser. Let's go make an on play and an on pause. So let's go up 29. Let's make a on play. Instance player play. That looks good. Let's duplicate that for on pause. Looks good. Now we have that and we're rendering again. But before we can play anything, we need something to play. Down here on line 11, we're doing a audio context, but we need to play that file, the sample MP3. So if we look at the documentation, we'll see that the way this thing works under the hood is by creating or reading a pre-computed waveform data. And so we need to generate that from the sample MP3 that we downloaded or that I downloaded off screen. And the way you do that is by using a tool called audio waveform, which we can read about here. This looks like a C++ project that generates data that you can use to render these types of waveforms. So there is directions on how to install this for various different platforms. I'm not going to go over that. I'm using Arch Linux. I assume you know how to install apps on your machine, so you can go ahead and do that now. And when you have the audio waveform CLI tool, we can go back here and we can run that command. So let's go to our public directory, and we should have a sample MP3, and we're going to run audio waveform -i sample mp3 -o sample.dat -b8, which if I'm guessing B is for blocks, maybe. I'm not sure what the B stands for. You should also use the B8 option when generating waveform data files, as Peaks.js does not currently support 60 bits. So this is an 8-bit .dat file, I guess is what that's trying to tell us. And it also makes the file size a little bit smaller, which is good for transferring over the internet. So let's Hit enter on that, and you can see that it created our sample.dat. So now we just need to tell Peaks about the sample.dat with a configuration like this. So let's just copy that. Let's plop that right there, and you'll see line 5, or 5 lines down, is now unhappy because it's an either or. So we want to get rid of this web audio, and now we should be able to play some audio if all went well. I'm just going to refresh to get rid of that error down there, and now we're good. We have play and pause. Good. So if you can see in the video, it's kind of hard to see. There is a light gray box around this section of the wave file, and this green representation is reflecting this small portion of the larger file. So this bottom gray area is representing the entire wave file, that sample.mp3 actually. But this top one is only representing a small segment of it. So as this segment moves, this top part will update. So if I can scrub up to here, you'll notice that this gray bar, this gray segment, moved over to the right just a hair. Okay, so now that we have this thing working and we can see what it does, let's add one more feature. So if we come to the API docs for Peaks.js, there is a considerable amount of information in the API documents. So what I'd like to do is there is the ability to create sort of a timer. Let's go down to events, and we have a timer. Let me just, those are pointer events, player events, timer update. So what we want to do is grab this here. This is going to listen to the instance events, and when we get a player time update event, we're going to console log out what the time is. So we'll put that down here in our use effect line, right around here. And instead of instance, we'll go peaks. And in theory, if we've done everything correctly, we should now have a console log that is printing out the seconds. There we go. But that's not very useful because that's in the console log. So let's put a little label up here to the right of the pause button. So let's go right around here. Let's make another div called class name called time. That'll do, time. And let's put in here basically what's in the console log here. So let's just copy this out and drop down to here, put that in, but let's get rid of the tildes and the $sign. So something like that. Time's probably not a good one to use because that might be a JavaScript reserved word. I'm not sure. So let's just put playback time. Playback time. All right, now we need a variable to hold that. Why? Let's save. Okay, good. Let's go up to here and make some state. Playback. There we go. Around 43. Oops. Yeah, right here. Const play. There we go. We'll start that at 0, and then we'll come down to 32, and we'll do set playback time to time. We'll get rid of this one, and now we should be getting some playback time in seconds, except for, let's put this up here. Yeah, so now let's make some CSS updates to make that look a little better. Let's make a dot controls, and let's do display flex to make that all on the same line. And then let's do a flex, let's call it a gap flex. Or maybe it's this gap. Yeah, let's try something like that. But let's make this not 10 pixels. Let's make this like 1 EM. Oh, that's too much. 10. Let's make that more like 6. There we go. That's looking good. Let's put a little margin bottom. There we go. Looking better. All right, so let's play that. So now you'll see that our seconds are quite large here at the end after the decimal. We can fix that by updating time with a math.round, and we can multiply this times 1 and the number of decimal places. Let's make that 3, just because I just pulled that out of the thin air. And then we divide that by the same number. And now we're narrowed down to 3. Okay, that completes, let me just actually refresh to make sure I don't have any errors. And we don't. That completes what I wanted to show you today. This is a very interesting project. If you have a need for any kind of a wave form or representation of an audio waveform in your browser, then I recommend you take a look at Peaks.js, created by the BBC. It works pretty well. It's pretty simple to use. It's compatible with React and is very feature rich. If you look at the API documentation, there's actually quite a bit it can do. You just take a look at the configuration. We barely even scratched the surface of what you can configure with this. It just keeps going and keeps going. It's very rich. So that's the configuration, and then it has all kinds of different APIs that you can call to manipulate the player, the views, the scrolling, the zooming, some various events that you can listen on. So I recommend you give this thing a try if you have any sort of a need for representing waveforms in your web application. Thank you, and I hope to see you in the next one.